Seth Mosley, good to see you, my friend.
It's good to see you. Thanks so much for having me, Kyle. Always good to catch up with you.
Yeah, same here. Hey, I love the backdrop. So that you're in Nashville, right? And that's your studio.
I'm in Nashville. I'm at my studio. We're just off of Music Row, and yeah, this is where all the magic happens.
It's been a few years. I think I met you in 2015 or 16. 15, met you in 2015, and you were 27, 28, had 2 Grammys. Now you're up to 3, over 30 #1 songs, written over 1,000 songs, which is incredible. And you're at the old ripe age of what now?
I'm 35 now, so
35.
Yeah, turning 36 here in October.
Incredible. Well, hey, today, I want to talk to Seth, the person. I want to talk to Seth, the entrepreneur, because you have multiple businesses. But mainly I want to talk to Seth, the songwriter, producer, that also has Song Chasers, where you're helping young aspiring songwriters learn the business and hone their craft. And so thank you for jumping on for the podcast today. It's our second time. And again, you just have such a remarkable story, and you're the real deal. If I send you a text, you're going to respond in seconds or not at all until you have that window, right? But you just get things done. I've always loved that. But
I see the get. Thank you so much, Kyle. I appreciate your friendship as well, too, man.
Yeah, I've had the honor of you coming to my inner circles in Dallas and playing some songs for us, which was a huge delight. And you also played at the Brian Tracy 3-day event, which was beyond cool. And Who were you playing with? Who was the background group?
So I think I had brought my team up from Full Circle Music just to attend the event and learn. Honestly, it was such a big thing. So X was there, my co-producer. I think we had our main vocal producer there with us, and then one of our engineers and editors, Jericho, was with us at the time as well. So it was a very impromptu band setup.
Well, I was thinking you played a High Valley song that had just been released on the charts.
Yeah, we did, and it's that song. It's kind of amazing how things work nowadays in the music business. It used to be where you'd have a hit, then the song would kind of fall off. But nowadays, songs just kind of keep having a life of their own. And that one's still to this day. Like, I get videos from Brad. He just sent me one 2 days ago of 80,000 people behind him singing this song, and it's still streaming like crazy. It's a platinum record now.
Unbelievable.
So just crazy. And that kind of kicked off my country music career, which is largely where I've been focused as a writer and producer over the last 2 years, working with Sony Music in Nashville as my publisher.
Amazing. And what's the name of the song?
So that song is called Make You Mine by High Valley. And that was one that kind of kicked off the whole country journey, because I had this whole phase 1 of my career that was a lot in Christian music, and I still am doing a good handful of things in that space. But that song really sort of kicked off this whole 2.0 part of my career that's in country.
Well, let's go back and touch on the Christian phase or the Christian part of the journey. And if I remember right, you grew up in Cincinnati or near Cincinnati?
Yeah, not far from there, about an hour east in a little town called Circleville, Ohio. So not much to be known about that town. It's a small town.
Well, on the first podcast I had you on, you talked about in the basement, starting to get your producing chops. And then eventually, this is such a great lesson. I so appreciate how you got your start in music, because I can relate to it in the seminar world myself. You decided, instead of trying to wait on someone, you would just go out and book your band to go play at clubs and play at different places and actually do a tour. And then from there, you're like, hey, I've got the inroads, so I'll book other bands, which is kind of what I did when I had Jim Rohn International, and I booked him up solid. Then I started Your Success Story and booked up solid everyone else. So I so appreciated that entrepreneurial part, that hustle part. And then you said at age, 23, 24, I'm going to go to Nashville.
Yeah, it was right around that time. I had been producing and writing for other artists, kind of on the side of me doing my own band thing. In the process of doing that, I got to work with a band called Newsboys that I grew up listening to. They were a really big band in the Christian space. They were my first record I got when I was a kid, it was 1995. And then fast forward to 2009, my first record I ended up producing in Nashville was their Born Again record. And that really kind of anchored me in Nashville as a producer songwriter, and was a big part of me stepping off the road and really taking off the artist hat.
And to connect the dots, Newsboy Michael Tate from DC Talk,
yes,
which I first saw open up for DeGarmo and Key, you know. So again, we've always had these little connection points, right? So I definitely knew the groups you were working with.
Yeah. Michael Tate. I mean, it's crazy when you get to work with your heroes that you grow up listening to. And so that was a big reason for me starting the company. It's called Full Circle Music because it's just been all these full circle moments of people that I grew up listening to in the Christian space, and now in the country space, people that I've grew up listening to, getting to work with them too.
Yeah. Name some of the other Christian artists you worked with along the way.
Yeah, so I got to do records for King and Country, Michael W. Smith, Mercy Me, Jeremy Camp, Hillsong, Bethel. Sorry, I'm just looking at the wall. Matt Carney, Francesca Battistelli, Skillet, Elevation. It was definitely quite a few casting crowns in that world.
Incredible. You know, and I didn't even prepare for this interview because we've had a history for 8 years. And so it's just bringing up stuff for me. And what that brings up for me is the first time we met, and I was at an event and people were saying, you know, there's this guy from Nashville who's really good. Well, I happened to Google you and I see, no, you're really, really good. You're two-time Grammy winner, a Billboard Songwriter of the Year, Billboard Producer of the Year. And I had just had Phil Collin of Def Leppard at my house 2 days before. So we were talking that, and then I said, hey, I'm going to be in LA for the Foo Fighters concert. So we're kind of talking my world. And then something hit me, and it was, I said, you know, but my favorite band is Switchfoot. And you said, well, Jon Foreman was just at my house last week and I produced a song, and I got chills. And from there, you invited me to come to Nashville a month later, and I got to meet Jon. We went to the concert, and the next day, I think, is when we did our Music and Money, or our mastermind, met the manager from Skillet, met your world. You were like the mayor of Nashville. And then the next day, we're at the something monkey.
Frothy Monkey, probably.
Yeah, the Frothy Monkey.
Good memory.
That's where we did the mastermind, upstairs, by the way.
Exactly.
And there's these two guys, come to find out that was High Valley. You were meeting with them on the project. You were working with them.
Yeah.
So what a cool experience. I get on the airplane to go to Nashville. Tommy Shaw of Styx is sitting by me. I get to show him pictures of Phil at my house. So they had just opened up for Def Leppard. So we talked the whole time. And of course, he lived in Nashville. And then to meet Jon Foreman, to have you co-host the mastermind, bring in your world, met the president of Word, all these amazing people, you know, throughout that whole 2-day experience of Jon Foreman. And what an amazing human, by the way. And then, you know, to be in your world, which was incredible.
Well, man, that's just music. It brings so many different types of people together. I'm just thankful to be working in it, and because to me, it really is like the great uniter. And I just took my wife to Ed Sheeran. We just celebrated our 13th wedding anniversary last weekend. So we went to the Ed Sheeran show in Nashville, and you're looking around and there's literally like so many people that have nothing in common with each other on paper, except for this love of these songs and this music. And so that's one of the many reasons I have loved being in the industry, is because all the amazing people, yourself included, that it's helped me to connect with. And it really has this kind of magic to just bring people together.
You know, Jim Rohn used to say sports and music, because my world, personal development, is so small. People apologize. Well, Kyle, I never heard of you, never heard of Jim. I'm like, yeah, most people hadn't. But sports and music, and that never, I always remember him saying that. And it's such a great observation. and music in particular. And I've always loved music. Well, hey, let's fast forward. I want to get to the country work you've done, but I just right after the Jon Foreman thing, I invited you to speak at the Brian Tracy 3-day event, which you did a phenomenal job. And then you hit me up about maybe doing a songwriter course. And I said, I had 2 questions. I said, Seth, number one, do you have an audience? Which you said, not really, like an email list, a podcast. And number 2, do you know if your avatar will buy it, which would be millennials, Gen Z? And you said, I'm not sure. 2 really honest answers. And from there, you launched a podcast, you got more involved in social media, you started building the audience. But then number 2, you tested the concept with a live event. Live events are better than trying to build online courses. You know, they're a lot of work, right? And from there, you went and built what was it originally Song Chasers, or is that the version 2?
Yeah, so Song Chasers is what it is today. It's a live community that has a lot of great pre-recorded training content in it as well. But yeah, you're totally right. We started really just as an experiment. You know, the podcast was kind of step 1. Step 2 was launching a 30-person music makers boot camp, out of which came Logan, who is the guy who runs the academy today, came to that first event. And so many of the people who are part of it today were at that event. And it was a great validation that, man, I love this teaching, this teaching and mentorship side of things kind of scratches a different itch for me, and really honestly feels like something I is one of the big, like, just mission and legacy and calling things that I feel like God has me on this earth for, is to not only do the thing, but then to like turn around and hopefully help and serve as many other people as possible. And not saying any of that way of like trying to pat myself on the back. I genuinely felt like in that moment of doing the event, like this is the right direction to be moving.
There's so many lessons in that too. Like, I always, encourage people to follow what works, first of all, and it worked. And second of all, to be authentically, who you are. That's what we're best equipped to help the person we once were, is a quote I've really been on lately. And you are authentically that guy. I understated it. You've written close to 1,500 songs. That's incredible. Age 35. But to launch that, because a lot of people, there's a lot of, I think, really bad advice in the marketplace about go launch a program, go do this, go do that. And, we talked about the 4 things to test an offer. Number 1, irresistible offer to a warm market, which means go the lowest price you think possible. And then that way, if they don't buy, it's not the price was the issue. You just don't have the right offer or the right people. And then there has to be a deadline, sense of urgency. And there has to be some fear of loss, not fear of loss is not the right word I'm looking. There has to be exclusive in the sense you have to have a hard stop. So you went with 30 people, didn't know if it would take a couple of weeks. It took a couple of days. I said, well, then get a waiting list going for the next one. And then the next one, I think, doubled the price, doubled the number of people, same thing. Third one, tripled the price, tripled the number of people. And you said, I got a guy that said, hey, you should go create a course. And he was now a raving fan. And that's really how it works, right? You test small. If it doesn't work small, it's not going to work big. And I'm sure these are similar things in what you're teaching young artists as well, right? If it doesn't work local, it's not going to work global. If it doesn't work small, it's not going to work big. You got to make it work where you're at, I would think. Now, that's not maybe always the case, but usually the case.
Yeah, for sure. And to your point, it's just, you just try stuff because you don't know what's going to work, and you walk through the doors that are working and other ones. I just being fully vulnerable, like there's a lot of stuff in the last 5 years entrepreneurially that hasn't worked, and those things you kind of cut your losses and you move on and just really put all your energy into the stuff that is working.
Was it the people you were working with, the idea itself?
Yeah, so when we first sort of started this whole academy thing, and this is a big lesson in and of itself, is I started a publishing venture, a publishing company, a record label of sorts, and the academy really all at the same time. That's not a very good idea. You really should just focus on one thing. But at the time, to my credit or whatever, like I didn't know which was going to be the thing that would work. So you got to sometimes try them. I'll throw multiple darts at the board. And the publishing worked okay. The label worked okay, but it always felt like there was more of a tailwind behind what I'm doing as a songwriter and producer and what we're doing on the academy side of things. So those are really the only two things I'm focused on at the moment. And we decided to kind of, just let the publishing company and the label side go.
I can see energetically the difference. Publishing and record label, now you're an attorney, if you will. Like that's a whole legal, you're approaching people, because I've been in the same boat, right? You're trying to work out a joint venture, and now it's a different relationship versus you being the mentor to people that are coming up, and the dollars are just a lot different, right? You charge, but it's not gonna, it's achievable. But the stakes are higher. There's got to be massive trust. Maybe that trust, you're just meeting someone for the first time. The trust hadn't been established. So it's just a whole different proposition, right?
Yeah, the deals are just
resistance.
The deals are just they have to be long term, because it takes so much work to break a new artist or a new writer, and there's so little guarantee that it's going to work anyway.
Yeah,
it's kind of like a venture capital model where you sign 10 of them and hope one of them blows up.
Right.
And for me, I just felt like there was no joy in doing that. I love, like, if I'm going to take all those shots, I'd rather it just be me as a creative and just throw as many songs at the wall and see what sticks, as opposed to having the careers and really lives and livelihoods of other people at my responsibility. Or which is the way that it at least felt to me. So I kind of just stripped that back, and I'm more so betting on myself as a writer, producer, but also just the like you said, the academy and being able to mentor and teach people. It's just a much more fulfilling relationship to have.
I can so relate. I was with our friend Darren Hardy recently, and he said, how many speakers are you out working with? I'm like, none. I mean, I have some that join my inner circle and many that are in my books, but I'm not trying to make the next person the next Jim Rohn. It's just such a impossible equation, and the expectations are just not there. I mean, if they're the real deal, yeah, they can hire me to coach them, but I don't want that responsibility to take on a career. And it's just not what I want to do. It's the bottom line. Yeah. And so I can just because you can doesn't mean you should. Right. And so, I do want to get to the music, but I also know, and this is just such a cool thing about you, is I know that aggressive's not the right word, but you just make things happen. Like when you asked me back in 2016 about the songwriter course, and I brought up audience. I mean, you started a podcast in a month. Like, you just move fast, lightning fast, but at the same time, you have balance. You maybe part of that's you married someone is she from Sweden or?
Yeah, she's from Sweden. Yeah.
Yeah. And so
very much a great asset in my life, and keeping that balance there for sure.
Yeah. You go take a month off. You guys go to Sweden for a month. Like, you really have a great balance between work, family, passion, because I'll see I'm following you on social, and you're out doing fun stuff too. And that's so cool and so commendable, especially at age 35. A lot of us, like me, I was a type A seminar promoter. I was at home with my family, but I wasn't living life. And Jim Rohn would even get on to me, say, Kyle, you need to enjoy life more. And it just took me so long to figure that out. So I'm always just have such a respect for people like yourself who make things happen. Like, you make things happen, and yet you also know when to turn the switch.
Yeah, it's a hard I mean, you know, my friend Brandon Turner has been another one that I always quote a lot of times, but he talks about how it's not even really like balance, but it's more just like just shifting gears, like knowing when to shift gears, because balance like gives us this false sense that we're going to get to a certain state and everything's just going to be all right, but it just never really works like that. And so it's more just like you said, it's knowing when is there too much on this side, and when do we need to tilt the scale a little bit towards that. And it's, you know, it's something I'm still navigating. It's not an easy thing, but we got to do it, right? Because I think there's always going to be more work. There's always going to be more opportunities. That's always the fear, is that if we don't take this gig, then we're not going to get another chance. But I just don't really believe in that scarcity mentality. I think there's always enough to go around, and if you say no to something, there's always going to be another thing waiting around the corner.
You know, you met Sophia. She came to your course in Nashville, and she shared something with me once that was so powerful. She said, Kyle, there's people in your movie theater, you know, watching your movie, and sometimes some have to leave for someone else to come in. There's people waiting outside. There's no room for them to show up. So that was so empowering to me, and it's so true. It's not till we say the no that we can open the door to the yes. It's part of life's lessons, I guess, that we got to figure out. And I think the other thing I really struggled with that I don't today anymore was being an entrepreneur, my team, building a big team, making sure everyone's happy. And sometimes you feel like you're working for them, and you have a lot of different things going. And then, and as entrepreneurs, sometimes you have to be selfish, and selfish isn't even the right word. You have to take care of your own family and your own self. And sometimes that means, just like you decided, I can do all these things, but I don't want to do all these things. Let me do the things that bring me joy, that I'm really good at. And that might mean a smaller team. And sometimes that has to be factored in. There's things I say no today because I know I don't want to build the team to do it. I could go do big events. But I've already done big events. I don't need to go do that again, because it's not something that's going to make me happy. So is that kind of, if you had to go down that path yet of less is more in some ways?
For sure. 100%. A big team is not always a better thing. Sometimes having one person or two people or three people is your sweet spot. I don't know that my sweet spot as a human being is in a team management role. I don't enjoy it that much, to be honest. A lot of what team management entails is just weekly rhythms, cadences, holding people accountable for doing work or not doing work, trying to inspire them, trying to keep people aligned. And it's not actually doing the work, which is the part that I enjoy doing. I enjoy the creative part of it. And so for me, any entrepreneurial venture has to be rooted in the fact that there has to be somebody who is, and really I'm talking about the academy here at this point, because there's really isn't another entrepreneurial venture aside from the academy. And so it has to have some way of kind of running itself, meaning there has to be somebody who's a strong leader that really can kind of report to me and take the vision and sort of execute on it. But I just don't enjoy being in the weeds on business operation day in and day out. I've definitely had seasons where I've been there and I've led the weekly, you know, GSNR meetings or the 4DX meetings or whatever, EOS. There's a lot of different ways you can do it. But I just, for me as a human, that stuff doesn't get me excited, doesn't make me excited to get out of bed every morning. And so I would rather err on the side of just having a smaller team, less people to manage. You can be more nimble. You can do more of the things that you actually probably want to do.
Love that. And to your credit, though, you do have the business part down, which is oftentimes where a lot of artists struggle. And so you at least take ownership of it, and you've done really well. And you said, so first, your core business is still as a producer, right? Like you have
Correct.
a studio, people book days and sessions with you. And if you don't mind, let's go down that path with some of the current artists, for the past 5 years, some of the artists you've worked with, and how much of that is as a producer, how often you get involved in helping write the songs, and then anything after the music's ready to go. Do you get involved in the promotion of it and things like that?
Yeah, so I'll start with that question. I've pretty much unplugged myself from anything that has a marketing or promotion responsibility attached to it, and a lot of that was the label and publishing stuff, which that's your job. If you're the label, if you're the publisher, it's your job to promote it to the world. So and it's been the best decision ever, but I've unplugged myself from everything and anything related to promotion and marketing. And I just enjoy life so much better. It's as simple as that.
Well, it's hard to do it all, right? It's hard to write the song, produce the song, have the team, and then go do the other part and still be happily married and be a dad. And
yeah. That part for me just had no joy in the process, because it's always greasing the wheels or trying to play some political game, or paying this guy here, or just going out to this dinner because it's going to make this person happy. It's just all that stuff that, to me, I'd rather just be home with my kids.
And at your core, you are an artist. I mean, you began touring, writing songs, touring a band. So yeah, you did the business stuff enough to get the foundation to now have all the credibility, all the #1 songs, the Grammys, the incredible artists you've worked with. But yeah, now you get to be back to artist mostly.
Yeah, and that to your original question really is the core of my business. It's me as a songwriter, and then me as a producer as well. I would say on a time level, I probably spend 60% of my time writing songs, probably about 30% on production, and then 10% on everything Academy related. So that's kind of how things break down in any given week.
Well, initially, you probably are spending more time on the producing side, right? Because that's what paid the bills. So I know you were a really booked 7-figure a year producer, and now you probably work with less people, groups that you can help write the songs. So give us some of the folks you've worked with and that you've produced and songwritten with.
Yeah, I mean, definitely some of the ones we talked about earlier, Skillet, Newsboys for King and Country. I've done a lot of production and writing with them. Like the High Valley guys. Over the last couple of years, as it's branched more into the country space, I've written a lot with Rodney Atkins, is a big one in the country world. I've got cuts with Gabby Barrett, has a big radio single out right now that I wrote and did some production work on. Tim McGraw just recorded a song of mine. It's the first track on his new record, comes out in just a few weeks.
That's huge.
Blake Shelton cut one that I was involved in the writing and production. That one comes out in a couple months. There's a Luke Combs one that it's probably going to be about a year or so, but he sent a video over the other day of him singing the song. He's like, this is a hit, this is a smash, we're going to do it. So it's been a lot of the names, honestly, that I've wanted to work with, and Sony's been such a great strategic partner in helping me go out and work my way into some of those circles. So it's been a fun journey, and you really do never know. Even just yesterday, like I got to work with one of the guys that me and my wife listen to him during our workouts all the time. It's a guy named James TW. My wife has this thing for like the sad boy love song British voices, like Ed Sheeran,
Yeah.
And so he's very much one of those where, is billion stream artist, huge artist. I didn't even know who he was, but I knew all his songs. And so he was in with us yesterday. It's just different, just people from all over the spectrum. It's just been an absolute blast to get to kind of get into some of these new territories.
Amazing. And again, I've watched part of the trajectory. I mean, you were already doing it when I met you, but again, I think a lesson for artists, whether you're an actor, singer, definitely applies to my industry, is sometimes you have to make it happen on your own to get to that point. Like if someone came to you and they said, Seth, I want to, I'm an amazing singer, amazing songwriter. I want to go play in front of huge audiences, and they don't have 1,000 people on their YouTube channel, and they're not on social media. It's going to be hard to do it. They have to get some traction on their own, because if they're not bringing that to the table, it's going to be hard to then go work with someone, right? It's just the game's changed. There isn't the middleman anymore like there used to be, right? The artist has to make it happen up to a certain point before I think they get the attention.
Yeah, we tell our interns this all the time, that you've got to do the job before you have the job. And that goes specifically in music, but I would imagine it probably works that way in a lot of other industries too, where if you want to be in the position of a successful recording artist, you've got to start being a recording artist before anybody tells you, hey, go be a recording artist. You just need to do it. Same could be said of, hey, you want to be a big sports commentator guy, like go start a TikTok page and start commenting on sports and developing your own interesting voice on it. And, so you really have to be more entrepreneurial in that way, I think, just all the way around, but especially in the music business.
For sure. And there's exceptions. They're rare. And some people want to point to the exception. And there's always going to be an exception. Someone gets discovered that doesn't want to promote. And so, but there are very rare exceptions. And so there is a formula to get there. There is a formula to work. And so let's kind of go to that, to what is a big passion of yours now. I mean, you're fine financially with, you're doing amazing as a songwriter, as a producer. You're also a real estate investor. You mentioned Brandon Turner earlier. Maybe that's someone you work with from Bigger Pockets, or used to be, I guess. Like you're great in that whole world, but you did Song Chasers as a way to take what your gift and really mentor people and create a platform that is a bit of filter as well too, right? So it's a filter for talent to rise up. But yeah, talk about that evolution and maybe some of the biggest things you want to share with those that come with questions.
Yeah, for sure. Song Chasers, like you said, I mean, that's really the main focus on the Academy side. It's a ongoing membership. It's a community where people get access to live and pre-recorded trainings on everything you can imagine related to songwriting, music production, promoting yourself as an artist. And they get to do it in the context of a community, which has become so valuable. And I think where a lot of courses, sort of fall short is, okay, well, what do I do after I've watched these videos? The answer for a lot of people is just nothing. But if you have the accountability of a community that you show up to every week, you're going to be a lot more likely to make progress. So we've seen that happen in really big ways in Song Chasers. A lot of our Song Chasers people come to our yearly boot camp that we do, which has grown a lot since that first 30-person one that we started. We just did our boot camp, and it was about 300 people that came to it. And it kind of becomes a family reunion of sorts for a lot of these people who are seeing each other virtually. They're co-writing, they're collaborating, they're sharing songs with each other, and learning and just growing every step in the process. So that's what we're doing on the Song Chaser side. I've got a great community manager named Riley Taylor who is now running it. She came through our apprenticeship program and she now runs that. And like I said, Logan Crockett is still overseeing all things Academy, VP of all things Academy, and he came through our first boot camp. So it's fun to see some of these stories of people that are coming through our world and finding success. Just this morning, we had our live monthly kickoff party in Song Chasers. We do a new theme every month. We announce it each month. rolled it out, and we share some wins from the former month, and just getting to even hear those. Some guys having his first sync placement on a TV show from a song that he wrote is now, like, this guy that probably didn't even know that possibility existed a year ago is getting songs on TV shows. And people who were scared to put their music out or scared to sing in public, like they're releasing their records on Spotify and diving into production and all these things that they just had no idea that they could do. So it's just really, really fun to get to be a part of those wins, even if it's on a micro level of just helping people like, hey, I can actually write songs and get them out there into the world. For so many people, that's just been a huge win. If it's a dream that they've left on the back burner, but they are dusting it off and pulling it out, and we're encouraging them, hey, lean into this, and here's how you do it. We're going to support you. You can support each other. So it's just, I'm really, really excited about, I feel like we're just at the ground floor, scratching the surface of Song Chasers.
Wow.
But yeah.
That's amazing. That means you built it the right way. If 7 years, and again, you launched it with a big boom. I mean, you had a really great launch, and 7 years later, for it to still, you feel like you're just at the beginning of how much, that just shows it's the real deal. And, as entrepreneurs, that's where the joy is, right? The joy is in stuff that works, because now you're not churning through people, you're actually attracting people. Here's my most recent favorite quote: "The best marketing is a transformed life." It's when you really impact people that then people bring you people, right? They refer people, and then everything compounds. And I've watched you, Seth, everything you do compounds, and then I see some people that have been starting over for 20 years. People in my business, they're constantly starting over versus planning, and then something compounds because it's really good. They really care. They bring the thing that feeds it, and then it's just going to exponentially grow. So It sounds like, I love that you said you feel like you're just at the beginning, because it has been very robust already, what you've done.
No, we have a really big vision to impact a whole lot of songwriters out there. And if I can even just share a quick story as to why that's important to us. We had a lady that joined our community probably about 2 years ago. Her name's Carolyn. And she shared this story with us live at a testimonial on stage at our boot camp. So I didn't know this like before 2 months ago. But she said that she was in a really, really dark season of her life, having a lot of health issues. She lost her mom, and she was contemplating taking her life. And so she was going through the process, and this is literally just a couple of years ago, of creating this playlist, this Spotify playlist of songs that she would want played at her funeral. And she came across this song by this band that nobody had ever heard of, but it really just spoke to her and ministered to her and brought a lot of light to her in a situation, and kind of kept her going and kept her from making that decision that would have otherwise ended her life. And so fast forward, she ends up joining our Song Chasers group, and she was able to connect with the guy that wrote that song through Song Chasers, and to be able to like tell him that live at the event. It was like, I still get goosebumps just thinking about it.
Wow.
And so, that to me, those are the kind of wins that, like, it's bigger than just trying to help people get a song on a chart. It's bigger than just trying to help people, like, the Grammys and all that. That's cool. But it's more about, like you said, it's those life transformations. And in many cases, songs that are helping save people's lives. So it's like, okay, well, how many more of those can we help get out to? So she's really become kind of a, I don't want to say a mascot for our team, but just our team has gotten so excited hearing that story that we want to hear 100 more of those.
Love that. Amazing. And that is a trait when you're doing something that's the right thing. That's when you're in the right place doing the right thing. You have the right people. I know I have my true north on things, like with my inner circle, and there's a handful of people like Colonel Tim Cole and some others that I want to do it in such a way they want to keep showing up. And if they don't want to keep showing up, I move too too far the wrong way. And typically it would be in a business model versus a human model that really can make a difference.
Yeah.
I do want to point out something too. You mentioned Riley and Logan, who are part of your team, and there is something about showing up. You've had this happen. I know I have it happen. Someone that's not even part of my group, you know, they're not part of the inner circle or books or coaching. A Facebook friend will say, Kyle, I have a friend I met that loves Les Brown. Can you connect us? You know, and the bottom line is I've had Les Brown, you know, 3 times at my things, but they weren't there. You have to show up sometimes, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I can't do that. I can't take a person I don't even know, friend that they don't know, that I don't know, to Les Brown. That's just never going to happen. But if they show up, you never know, right? So when you have guests at your events and someone shows up, or, you know, you have a special guest in the community and someone shows up, I've watched it happen. Authentic connections happen. Something magical potentially can happen when it should. But that is the lesson. And you know it as an artist many years ago, you would show up, your people are showing up, and something, then you have the potential for something to happen.
Yeah, you're totally right. And I would even take it a step further. It's more than just showing up. It's showing up with the right attitude of, you know, we tell that to people in Song Chasers, like the ones who aren't getting a lot out of it, I can guarantee you are the ones who are not putting anything into it. And they're expecting people to do things for them as opposed to coming into it with a servant mentality. And that's the thing that we see, like that Carolyn lady who I shared a story about, she's gone on to become one of like she's at every single event. She's taking notes and time stamping all of our things just so other people aren't missing any of the content. And like anytime some people are doing a song sharing, she's shouting out, like pasting the links for their new releases. And so everybody can go find it. And it's those type of people who everyone wants her to win because she's helping everybody else.
And
So,
now you're telling her story too, and you'll continue to tell her story. And it is the equation, right? And it's when it authentically is real is what makes it, you know, you can't make this stuff up. It's gotta, you know, we all have those opportunities. If we do good work, we show up in the right way at the right time, something magical potentially can happen, right? And then you have to be in the right environment. That's the other great thing, is you created a really cool environment. You are the real deal. Nothing replaces authentically being the real deal. Yeah, I'm sure you see it in your industry. I see it in mine. And it's like, you know, someone reads a book and now they become a coach, right?
Right.
But no, you've been doing it the right way. Well,
I
Seth, this has been amazing. If people want to contact you or get a hold of you to learn more about Song Chasers, to follow you on social media, what are the best ways?
Yeah, so we have a YouTube channel. We're actually gearing up to ramp heavy back into YouTube content, really make that a big push. So tons of free, I would say that's the best place to start. Just go to our YouTube channel. We have probably 200 some odd videos on there they can go through if they're interested in learning about anything about music or songwriting or the music business. Start there. That's just the Full Circle Music YouTube channel.
Okay.
And all of that stuff is linked from our website, which is fullcirclemusic.com. We're in the process of kind of revamping our website, but you can find all of our stuff through there. So it's just all at fullcirclemusic.com.
And then socials, do you encourage people to follow you on Instagram, or is it more the business that you have them follow you?
Yeah, I would say people are welcome to follow me on Instagram. I'm just at the Seth Mosley on Instagram, and I try to be, fairly active and responsive on there as much as I can.
Well, hey, do you have time for a couple more questions?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. So you had mentioned some pretty big hitters: Tim McGraw, Blake Shelton, Rodney Atkins, many others. Jon Foreman, again, one of my personal favorites. Yeah. Are there some lessons you've learned by observing them, or is there some profound things they've said, or just observations you have had? Like, does anything stand out to you when you think of some of the iconic people in your industry?
Man, it's so obvious and it's so simple, but Tim McGraw, Blake Shelton, Kenny Chesney, the thing that they do that a lot of the new artists who hit a ceiling don't do is they cut the best songs. It doesn't matter if they wrote them themselves, they just cut the best ones. And I think where that can apply to anybody is like, just take it doesn't have to be your idea. It can be an idea from anywhere, and you can partner with people on ideas and just let the best idea win. And I think that's the thing of why Blake Shelton is where he is and why Tim McGraw is where he is because their body of work is so strong. And they're great writers in and of themselves, but they just know that, there are people who are doing this every day on Music Row. They're out filming the next Yellowstone or The Voice or whatever the TV show that there is on. So they don't have time to be in here writing 250 songs a year. So they're gonna just take them from where they can get them. So I think that's a big thing. That may be a little music industry specific, but I hope the parallel of that is just don't be too proud to take ideas from the outside. Not everything has to come from you.
I've seen you on social talk about encouraging your students to co-write as much as possible. Just get with other people, co-write, and A, you get to learn. B, you never know when magic could happen, right? And connections. So again, to your point, it's not just having a song that they wrote, but doing, leveraging all the talent out there.
Yeah, and I would say embrace. I mean, that's a good segue, but embrace the co-writing mentality. Like whatever your industry is, find people that you can bounce ideas off of, and like Kyle's mastermind. I mean, use those relationships and leverage those relationships, because it's the same as what a stand-up comic does, where they don't even know if a joke is gonna completely land until they go and tell it live. So they're kind of co-writing with their audience, their whole set that's going to be their Netflix special.
Love that. Well, that kind of segues into, you just made me think of something. How much do you guys test a song? Like you like, hey, this sounds good to us. I mean, how many people are you going to play it for? Like how much of testing goes on? And I'm sure the bigger artists, there might be a little bit more of that, or maybe it just gets down to if they really like it, they're going to release it.
No, you're totally right. And this is the part that I kind of love and hate about it now is everything is so tested on social media. If something doesn't work on TikTok, a record label is not going to invest the money to put it to radio. It already has to be working before they invest. It has to be streaming 1 million, 2 million streams a week before they'll even give it a shot at radio. So people are very much testing stuff. TikTok really is the big platform for that now. Throw something up. If it doesn't work, write another one. Throw something up. If it doesn't work, write another one. So it can make songs feel a little bit, what's the word? Like you can just throw them away, which is not always great for songwriters, but it really is the reality of like, you got to let the people tell you what they resonate with.
Wow, the industry's changed so much, right? So it's not even go do an album and release it. It's release songs. And we know all the negatives of Spotify, but I guess one of the positives is, as you said, a song lives.
It lives on forever. I mean, like the CD behind, like on the shelf, like you buy it once.
Right.
A stream, you stream it maybe 1,000 times, 100,000 times if you really love the song.
Yeah, and you discover artists their songs on a TV show. Like Switchfoot's had more songs at one time on sporting events. It was just crazy. And I think part of the reason is they give it away for free. Where publishing companies want to get paid to have that song play. I would watch Switchfoot just have so many songs play. And I'm just guessing it had to do with that. They own their own publishing. They're like, yeah, you can have it. But in today's world, you hear that song, you Shazam it, and then you go find it on Spotify, and then you listen to the whole playlist. Like that happened to me with Her, the artist Her. Saw her with Lenny Kravitz.
Yeah.
Watched her shred a guitar, and I'm like, okay, who is this? And then play the piano. And now I've discovered, to your point, 24 songs I didn't know because of Spotify.
For sure. It's a powerful thing. I mean, I'm fully behind it. I love it. I think it's great for the industry. We just, as writers and producers, have had to figure out how to adapt our business models to it, but it's great. It means there's a lot more room for more content and more songs to be written and produced.
No, and I think you just shared something so valuable for really anyone out there that's in similar models, and that's go test it first on social. And if it has, so I heard a guy in my world say with email list, and you have an email list now, right? And that's something we talked about back in the day. Right. But he said, every time you send an email, then send an email the next day to the unopens. And I'm like, that's the worst advice I've ever heard. I would never send an email to the unopens unless it hit a home run. You don't want to send a dud of an email and then send it to the unopens when it was already a dud, because you're just going to get unsubscribes unnecessarily. But if it was a home run, it's worth the risk to resend 2 more times, right? And so everything is that test. If it was crickets, learn, pivot. So you're saying there's a lot of pivots. Like you think you have something good here, but you got to be willing to pivot with it.
Man, you just have no idea. You honestly have no idea. We wrote a song yesterday, it's case in point, for with 3 other great co-writers who were signed to Sony. And we were like, this feels like a Blake Shelton thing. Like, he's still looking for songs for his record. I've got this one on it already. Let's send it over. And we sent it in to one of our managers, was like, I don't think this feels like a Blake Shelton thing. Like, this sounds either, I don't remember how he said it. He was like, this is too much like one of the other things he did, or it's like, I don't even remember what the reason was. But then we got a text, woke up this morning from my publisher saying, hey, Scott, Blake's producer, loves it. It's on hold for his record. So it's testing things even with multiple people. Like, you sometimes don't even know who's going to be the right lane for something to go through, right?
And it's luck at times, or serendipity, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
But it's a numbers game too, right? So if you won't know unless you do it. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. So Seth, let me ask you kind of a stray question here that just came to mind. So when did you feel like you belonged? And I don't know that we ever feel that way, or where did you feel like you had success and you belonged in Nashville? Was there a point in time you felt as a songwriter or as a producer?
Man, I honestly still feel like I'm finding that. I've had moments of it, you're, I guess you could argue that, hey, if you're on stage winning an award for a song you did, like, that's some sense of belonging. But I've never really felt, because I'm not one to go out and, Nashville is very much of a party, hang, go out to the bars and drink a lot scene. And that's never really been my, I'm not really a big party nightlife kind of guy. So that I've always felt a little bit on the periphery of a lot of that stuff. But all that to say, I don't know that I've ever really felt like I totally belonged in Nashville. But I'll say, here's what I will say, is having a family can help that a ton. I mean, I feel like that's who I belong to ultimately at the end of the day, is my wife and my girls. And we're super, super active in our church. We serve a lot with our church, help out with our church. I help with the music, and she helps with the, a lot of volunteer stuff that we do, and help with our kids. So you just kind of have to find those communities that may or may not even be related to your career, I guess. And I feel more today like I belong in Nashville music wise than I did probably a year ago, but it's still something that I think as an artist, you don't ever quite feel like you fit in. I don't know. Maybe some people do, but I've never really experienced that.
And I might not ask it the best way, but as you're talking, it also makes me think about, there are some artists that they feel like they have to be famous to ever. And I'm not saying that is a bad thing. That's just how they're wired. I think you are wired more as an entrepreneur, more as a guy who serves, who enjoys the work. The work in itself is rewarding. You've worked with a who's who of people. We hadn't even mentioned all the people who have been on your podcast. I mean, you've had I remember you texted me one day, say, hey, I got Eddie DeGarmo on because I'd mentioned Eddie to you.
Right.
You had a big DeGarmo and Keith fan back in the day, and you've had Michael W. Smith, and you just had a lot of big people. And so, but yeah, I don't think that you've never necessarily wanted to be famous. That's not like Jim Rohn didn't care about being famous. He really didn't. He saw it almost as a nuisance in a way. Where I
very much relate to that. And that's why I love being in this position where I can be behind the scenes and Tim's singing a song on stage and nobody even knows that I exist, which is totally fine with me.
But those that know, right?
Yeah.
And so that's why when he's singing the song on stage, you're getting the messages, hey, can you produce my next song or album or whatever it is?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Amazing. Well, hey, we could go on and on and on. I really want to respect your time. I'm so honored. You said yes, second time. And you're also going to be part of our transformational journey book, which is, you have such an amazing story. I appreciate you as a business guy. I appreciate you as a musician, but most importantly, I appreciate you as a human being and just the person you are, Seth. So thank you again so much.
Man, I appreciate it. Thanks so much for having me on again, Kyle.
Seth, thank you.
Yeah, awesome, man.